an absolutely Saturday that we're going to look back on once the season progresses a little bit and see that was the day. And here it comes. Tennessee, Alabama, 52-49, game-winning kick, Chase McGrath, 40-yard game winner. It was a knuckler, by the way. It was a weird kick that came off his foot weird. Doesn't matter. Went through the goalposts. That was one of those games, again, if you build it up, which we did, you're talking about the first time since 2006, all the memories of the Steve Spurriers, the Philip Fulmers, the T. Martins, the Peyton Mannings, the Danny Warfels, the legends of the game playing in this game that hasn't been competitive of late. 15 consecutive years. And you got the sense going into this one. And I had talked about it on the preview, and we had talked about it on Sports Center and some of the other avenues that I discussed college football with. That going into this game, who felt better about who they were? Tennessee coming off an absolute beatdown of LSU, or Alabama without Bryce Young escaping a Texas A&M game that Haynes King and Texas A&M could have won? Who came into this game feeling better? College Game Day was on site. SEC Nation was on site. The entire football planet resided in Knoxville, Tennessee on Saturday. And so all of this pressure on Heupel, Josh Heupel, head coach Tennessee, who had a quarterback in Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, we'll get to him in a minute. Everything was there for Tennessee. You just didn't want to see them blow an opportunity, which looked like the best opportunity in the last 15 years to get a win against Alabama. It all came to fruition. And there were so many ebbs and flows in this game. Tennessee came out about as good as you can come out against Alabama. Came out as good as you could come out against Alabama. It was 28-10 at one point. 28-10. Tennessee was doing whatever they wanted. I mean, they were scoring. I think it was 21-7 at one point. Jalen Hyatt to Hendon Hooker. The stadium was absolutely electric. This was an absolute perfect start for Tennessee and nightmarish for Alabama. They got Bryce Young back. You saw that conversation with him and Nick Saban prior to the game on the field. And everything was working for the Volunteers. And then little by little, here comes Alabama. Little by little, Alabama fights their way back, which they tend to do. The fumble when Dallas Turner scooped and scored, you're thinking, oh, wait, here we go. Here comes Alabama. Here comes the Alabama comeback. Here comes the heartbreak. In fact, at one point, I said this on College Football Final, Tennessee had done all this work to get the lead. They'd played as good as you could play, and then they missed the extra point, which I was hoping for McGrath wouldn't come back and get him. And then Alabama comes down, scores Jahmyr Gibbs. They make the extra point. Despite all of the work, Alabama was leading 35-34. This game will go down as a pivot point for the rest of the season. And I'll explain why. Because now what you have, Tennessee is undefeated. Whoever did Tennessee's scheduling is absolutely genius because they've got UT Martin next week. You're thinking, well, wait a second. Tennessee coming off this emotional win. If they have another game in conference, you could see a letdown. Look at the team that's playing Tennessee. It's UT Martin. They're fine. They go UT Martin, Kentucky, Georgia. And when you look at the path of the rest of the season for the SEC, what happened on Saturday with Tennessee getting the win is now you have a realistic possibility. And we discussed this with Paul Feinbaum. We do a recap every Sunday. Be sure to check it out, ESPN College Football YouTube channel. Let's just hear me out. Play this out with me. Tennessee goes undefeated, except for a loss to Georgia that keeps them out of the SEC championship. So they finish the season 11-1. Georgia goes undefeated, loses to Alabama in the SEC championship. So at that point, that would be their 13th game. So they would be 12-1. Is that right? See, I do this math thing. I got to stop doing math. Yeah, finish season, regular season, 12-0. Yeah, there we go. Math, Arizona State. Gotcha. So 12-1 for Georgia to end the season. So you got Tennessee 11-1. Lone losses, call it close to Georgia. 12-1, Georgia's only lost to Alabama, call it close in the SEC championship. Alabama wins the SEC championship 12-1. You are looking at the possibility. There's a long ways to go, but you're looking at the possibility 12-1 Alabama in the playoff, 12-1 Georgia in the playoff. Are you keeping Tennessee out of the playoff after what we saw them do on Saturday? And that's why I say it's such a pivot point, because now we're in a situation where we know Alabama can't afford another loss. They've already put that on themselves. Georgia and Tennessee could potentially afford another loss because of what happened on Saturday. There are so many different tentacles to this game and the landscape and how it's going to shift. Full disclosure, we taped this on Sunday morning. I'm groggy from a long Saturday and Saturday night. The rankings haven't come out yet. I would probably make an argument for Tennessee to be ranked number 1. I just want to go through some of the superlatives because they earned it, by the way. I just want to go through some of the superlatives of this game and just how remarkable the outcome was. Tennessee first win against Alabama since 2006. They were 0-15 against Alabama under Nick Saban. We know that. First 6-0 start to a season since 1998, which, by the way, was when Tennessee went on to win their most recent national championship. These are the things that Josh Heupel's got going in Tennessee. Jalen Hyatt, by the way, his numbers: 5 receiving touchdowns, over 200 yards receiving, got a helmet sticker for me in college football final. That sets a Tennessee record with 5 receiving touchdowns, ties an SEC individual game record with 5 receiving touchdowns, and is the most receiving touchdowns in a game against a Nick Saban coached Alabama team. You needed near perfection to get this done. And Tennessee got it done, where I was worried that the hype around Tennessee was going to get them. Not only were they ready and they were prepared, they won the football game. Cheers to Tennessee. And I don't want to pile on Tennessee fans this morning, because this is one of the greatest mornings. There are teenagers, there are sophomores in high school that don't know what it's like to beat Alabama in football. But I'll say this as an aside, because there are already 5 coaching jobs open to this point. If some open up later today, they open up later today. But keep this in mind. When Danny White, athletic director UCF, came over from Central Florida to Tennessee, he brought his head coach from UCF with him, Josh Heupel. And I don't know that a lot of Tennessee fans were thrilled about this hire. Like, well, this dude's from UCF. They had their one great season. They kind of started to come down a little bit. And you saw the picture last night on social media of Danny White and Josh Heupel smoking the cigars, as is tradition, after the third Saturday in October. There are times when a coaching hire doesn't make a splash. And then there are times when that hire that doesn't make a splash gets put in the right position with the right support from the administration to let him do his job. Bringing Hendon Hooker over from Virginia Tech. This roster was depleted because of the violations under Jeremy Pruitt. I couldn't be happier for a coach like Josh Heupel, who didn't land with fanfare, but now he did something that hasn't been done in 15 years. Look out for Tennessee now, because every program has a tipping point in their ascent. Now, could this be a flash in the pan when Hendon Hooker leaves? We don't know that yet. All we know is on this Saturday, the 7th week of the college football season, Tennessee put together the best performance of the year. But is this the time? Is this the performance? Is this the game that puts Tennessee back where I believe it should be in the college football landscape, especially in the SEC East? Because now the SEC East is down to 2 teams. Florida's out of it with their loss to LSU. They didn't look great. It's a 2-team race. It's Georgia and Tennessee. Volunteers have to go to Athens. And if you can get Tennessee back into the national conversation, it is so good for the sport. And now you have to look at the SEC West. How about Kentucky beating Mississippi State? That was a big win. You look now what's going on in that division. It appears all that's left for Alabama, to be fair. I know the Iron Bowl is always tough. Who knows what's going to be going on with Auburn then? But here you have Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss sitting undefeated, ranked 9th. That's going to be a tough game. But Tennessee, they deserved all the hype they got coming into this game, because all of us thought they had a chance. They deserve every bit of the credit they're getting this Sunday morning, because they got the win in a game that a lot of people, including Vegas, I think it got up to a 9.5 or a 10-point spread before kick. They did something a lot of people didn't think they can do. And so for that, the number of that game is going to be ridiculous. I hope the fans are still partying in Knoxville. I hope that goalpost shows up in some gutter after pulling an all-nighter at a Knoxville bar, because that's how good this sport is. When you see the fans rushing the field, they don't care. They don't give a damn what the penalty is. They're going to pay it gladly and be a part of a memory that's going to last for a long, long time. Cheers, Tennessee.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.